Thanks so much for taking the time out of your evening to join us for this workshop on Get There Together, which is a joint planning effort between the County of San Mateo and the City of Half Moon Bay to develop a transportation demand management plan for the unincorporated Mid-Coast and the City of Half Moon Bay. This effort is funded in part by the San Mateo County Transportation Authority through Measure W funds. Some of our key team members are here this evening, including myself. My name is Chanda Singh. I'm a senior transportation planner with the San Mateo County Planning and Building Department. My colleague Bharat Singh is not here, but he's our planning services manager, and I'll pass it over to Helen.
Good evening. Thanks so much for starting us off. I am Helen Walter. I'm a senior management analyst with the City of Half Moon Bay. My colleague Matt Nichols is also helping us out as well as tonight, and he's not able to attend tonight. Tonight we have Nelson Nygaard, we have Alex McCurry, who will be our primary MC, and Sophia Constantine is helping in the background as well. And then DKS is helping us with community outreach to make sure that we hit up and down the coast, trying to get as much feedback as possible. So what the heck is this project? What is a TDM Get There Together? Get There Together is the umbrella project, and within it is a TDM, which is a transportation demand management program. The map on the right shows our study area. In the north, it includes the unincorporated communities of Montera, Moss Beach, Princeton, El Granada, Miramar, the entire city of Half Moon Bay, and then south to about Moonridge. Although our analysis and recommendations will be primarily focused within the study area, we know that transportation challenges, community travel needs, and the TDM solutions don't follow city or county jurisdictional boundaries. They are a regional issue, and this boundary has flexibility.
Great. Thank you, Helen, and good to be here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I'm Alex Bicuri, and I am going to tell you about transportation demand management. So what is transportation demand management, or TDM? It refers to all kinds of different programs, policies, and tools that help it make it easier and safer to get around without driving alone. So that includes better transportation options, buses, bikes, all the different ways that you could choose to get where you need to go. It includes parking management. So what is the choice to drive versus use other modes, and what is it like to park, and is it priced? Is it regulated? How is access controlled to parking? It includes financial incentives, so discounts, again, pricing, little sort of often referred to as carrots and sticks to encourage people to do different things, or to create a balanced ecosystem of choice around how you travel. And then information and marketing. So what are the options? How do they work? What are the programs? How are they marketed to different types of people and different places? All these things together create this whole discipline that we call transportation demand management. So it's a lot of different strategies that add up to ways that make it easier to get around without driving alone. The benefits of TDM are many. A few to highlight are that they help ease traffic. They make it by making it easier to get around without driving and removing some cars from the road. They help provide better transportation options, so you have more choice, you have more flexibility for the different needs or different trips that you're making. They reduce greenhouse gas emissions, again, by reducing the amount of driving that happens both locally and regionally. And they lower transportation costs, again, by rebalancing options and making ways that are cheaper to get around easier, more convenient, more reliable, and making them work better for different people's needs. So that's TDM. Now, bringing us back to this project, we have these 5 broad goals for Get There Together. First, we want to emphasize connections and connectivity. So what does the network look like? What are the roads? How do people get around when they're biking or they're walking? And then how do people coordinate as well? Not just physical, but personal connections. We want to identify actionable TDM strategies. So we know that there is a lot that we could do, but we want to make sure that this plan points us to things that we can really hit the ground running with and start to make changes. Some of them can be done in the near term, others will take time, but there's a lot of steps along the way that we'll need to do to build momentum and coordinate even those long-term strategies that we can get started with now. We want to set our equity in the plan. So think about how these different programs and ideas benefit different people and address systemic challenges for different populations in the Mid-Coast and in Half Moon Bay and the unincorporated parts of the county. We want the solutions to be community driven. So we're doing a lot of engagement to hear from different folks in different formats. We've been doing a lot of pop-up events, so going to events in the community and talking to people. We've been having focus groups. We've been talking to stakeholders, partners, decision makers, and we've been having workshops like tonight to get feedback. And lastly, we want the plan to be able to guide decision makers. A lot of these issues are complex. They overlap with each other. They present difficult choices about what to prioritize and what the path forward is. And we want to provide a roadmap that helps people move forward and make decisions that support the priorities of the community. So our goals for today are straightforward. We want to learn from you about transportation challenges you face in the community. We want to share our initial ideas about how TDM can help. And we want to get feedback, thoughts, reactions to those initial ideas. So that is our plan for this evening. We will do a quick icebreaker, although I think with a limited crew, maybe we'll just skip this part and say, of course, while many people drive frequently, we often find that even if you think of driving as your number one way to get around, you still may have, or may often, or more or less often, you may bike around the coast side, you may use public transit, you may carpool or ride with friends to or from work or school or other destinations. You may walk either for fun or convenience or because it's your primary option for getting around. So zooming out from maybe just thinking about the one way that you're used to getting around and thinking about all the different ways that that are available and how we all can make different choices depending on our needs, how to get around. And looking forward to hearing ideas about those experiences tonight. So to start us off, I'm going to talk about what we've learned so far with a quick recap of some of what we heard in our previous conversations with the community and with stakeholders. So first of all, people tend to drive when they can. We know driving in the Mid-Coast is the dominant way to get around today. This is something that we've heard a lot of people emphasize about the way of life. We know that it's out of necessity for getting to different destinations that are far from things like transit or difficult or inconvenient to bike to or infeasible because you've got gear and you're going to the beach or you're going to work and you have equipment you need to bring and things like that. So driving is the dominant mode, but not everyone is able to drive or chooses to drive or has a driver's license. So for people who don't drive, we know that there are major challenges getting to all the places that people need to go for all the same reasons I mentioned. Not everything is close to transit, and public transit like the bus doesn't operate all day or in late hours or in early morning all day. So depending on when you want to make your trip, it may or may not be an option. Biking can be difficult. It is a hilly region. It is a region that not everyone, due to the roads, not everyone feels safe biking on roads that are maybe narrow or maybe there's a lot of traffic on again. So there are obstacles that that people face when they try to get around without a car. Obstacles also include just being unfamiliar with services or language barriers, trying to access services that do exist, but for various reasons may not be a practical option for people in the Midcoast. Lastly, we have learned that there's no single solution, right? And this is common with TDM. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of challenges, a lot of things that make it hard to get around without driving. And there's a lot of things we can do. No single solution is going to solve all the challenges we've learned about, but our goal with this plan is to bring it all together and create this comprehensive sort of package of things that we can do. And taken as a whole, that will add up to a more accessible community, more equitable transportation system, and a healthier, safer environment. So that's our aim. So what can we do? What have we thought of that we want to get some feedback from everyone tonight? We've looked at categories, we've looked at strategies in the coast side falling in 3 different broad categories. So first, improving the options themselves. So the bus, biking, the bike network, what are the options that you have and how do those systems or services work today? What are the things, right? Like, is the bus, does bus service go all the places people want to go? Are there gaps in the sidewalk network that make it hard to walk? So what is the environment that all these transportation choices play out in? 2, what are the supporting programs? So what are what discounts are there for different people for carpooling or for riding transit? What are the incentives? What are the promotional programs that help people learn about their choices? What are the kind of coordination efforts being done to help people maybe match with their carpool partner or learn about a new transit option when it becomes available? So all these kind of support programs. And then lastly, things that we can do at the management level. So looking at regulations, looking at how the city and the county manage these issues today to make things work better. So this is sort of in the back of house, if you will, of how all these systems operate, but how can we collect better data? How can we set the sort of rules and regulations so that they're working towards the goals that we know the community has and the priorities that the community has for mobility and accessibility? So we're going to take a look at these categories tonight. We're going to talk about some ideas for strategies in each of them and ask you some questions to get a little bit of feedback. We're going to take these in chunks as well. So we'll go through category 1, and then we'll get some feedback, category 2 and category 3, but we're going to go through them all twice. So first I'm going to walk through and present, get everyone oriented to what the strategies are. And then after we've finished the presentation, we're going to have the bulk of our time tonight to really roll up our sleeves and talk about them one by one and ask you questions. So there's going to be a lot to digest, but not to worry. We'll go through it twice, and there'll be plenty of opportunity to ask questions and chime in. Okay, first, transportation options, improving public transit service. So there are 2 main public transit services right now in the Midcoast. There is traditional bus service, and then there's a new service called Ride Plus that works by providing sort of point-to-point lines. It doesn't follow a fixed route. It's similar to using a Lyft or an Uber for people who have used those services before. You can call a ride, put in a destination within a defined service area, and they will come and pick you up. So what can we do to improve these services? We can think about making safer and more comfortable bus stops and shelters. So what is the experience like to wait for a bus, different times of day for different people in different locations? Can we make that more enjoyable? Can we make it safer, more comfortable? And then also looking at the design of these services themselves. So again, what are the hours that the service is available? How frequent does the bus come? Do those and could those be adjusted to better fit the priorities, the needs and priorities of the community. Looking at a coast-side parking strategy, so thinking about, again, the parking side of the equation for all of these alternatives to driving, we have to make sure that we're getting the parking side right as well, so that parking is managed, it is priced effectively where demand is high enough, and people aren't encouraged to just drive at any chance they get and park everywhere they want to or can, to the detriment of other ways of getting around. So there's a lot to be done to just look at the parking system as a whole and put some rules of the road in place that make sure that all the rules about parking and the parking options help people park once and walk to nearby destinations, or park where it's convenient, or are able to find parking when and where they need it without overbuilding lots of extra parking all around the mid-coast. It's a area that's full of natural beauty, and space is very precious. So I want to think thoughtfully about where parking is and how that impacts the environment around the parking. So looking at where there already are spaces, how are they used? Are there parking spaces in the mid-coast that are unused, maybe because they're restricted for certain types of users, but underutilized? And are there things like shared parking policies that could be put in place to kind of unlock some of those spaces and make them more available for more people? So streamlining the parking system, but also opening it up and making sure we're using it efficiently and effectively for all the different needs that parking can serve. Number 3, thinking about amenities that make it easier to park once. So I mentioned in the previous strategy that with an effective parking system, it is a great parking system allows you to park and get to multiple destinations without driving and reparking multiple times. Right? You can park, you can walk to the beach, and then maybe go get a meal, or you can park at work and then walk to run an errand after work, things like that. So by thinking about the experience of parking once and then trying to get around the mid-coast without driving again and reparking again, which adds traffic and adds parking need, and makes the roads sort of more clogged with cars, we want to think about little things to do, like adding storage lockers, adding rentals, things that would make it easier for people who come, especially visiting from elsewhere and come for the day, to park just one time and go to multiple different destinations and do all the activities they want to do without driving again. Number 4, prioritizing building a complete walking and biking network. So this project, because it's a TDM plan, is focusing on a lot of these support strategies. So we're not going to be recommending specific large infrastructure projects, but we are thinking about how do we share the limited space on the road, and what are the rules around where and when and how we build things like bike lanes, or prioritize space for transit, or how do things like building the sidewalk become part of the process as the area grows or changes or evolves. So thinking about what can we do that will set some clear priorities for when and how we advance some of these projects, many of which have been studied through efforts like Connect the Coast Side, but this project can start to think about how to stitch together those gaps in the network, or the need for these pieces of infrastructure with policies or programs that can help prioritize them and make sure that they're well used and make sure that they're supported with all the other related parts of a healthy mobility system. 5th, thinking about exploring potential opportunities for shuttle service. So shuttles are a solution that come up a lot in TDM context, and there have been shuttles before in the Mid-Coast. There have been mixed results in the past with how often they're used or whether they're designed in a way that really meet the need. And there will be opportunities to revisit this and think about what a shuttle would look like, given how the Mid-Coast looks like today. So could we connect some key destinations, not just the beach and entertainment places, but other open spaces, downtown Half Moon Bay, schools, lots of nodes of activity or places that people want to go, and things that a service that would stitch them together a little bit more holistically than maybe has been done in past iterations of the shuttle service in the area. So it's a expensive project, but other coastside communities have found that there's a formula that can make it work and make it make sense. And again, it ties into some of the strategies we've mentioned already. So parking once and then getting on a shuttle and getting around the area with just the circulator shuttle before getting back to your car and driving home, or something like that. So moving on to the next category of strategies. So now we're thinking about, again, more programs and education to support the transportation options. We want to start thinking about the role of priced parking in the Mid-Coast. So this is again, an important part of balancing the demand for different types of transportation, or the balancing people's choices about how they get around, is thinking about the role of price. And it can be a complicated issue because going from free parking to price parking can feel like a big change, but in a lot of communities, they found it's a real payoff. The revenue from parking can be reinvested in critical needs in the community. The pricing can be equitable, so we can think about where and when and who pays for parking. And ultimately, price parking can be a very user-friendly tool, because it makes sure that cars in those most high demand spaces are not being parked for 8 hours, 10 hours a day, that people are coming for shorter stays in those most convenient central spaces downtown. And then if they have a longer stay, they're parking maybe a block away, or they're finding a place to park that's a little bit lower demand and is free. So it's sort of rewarding people who want to park elsewhere with free parking, but in those, looking again at those critical, most convenient, high demand spaces, what is the role that pricing could play? And there is a lot more to learn to figure out what that would look like. So it would be looking at a lot of data. It would be thinking about maybe setting some thresholds or targets for where and when pricing might make sense. It's thinking about how the revenue might be used. But this could be a really important piece of balancing the overall transportation system. We want to look at launching a transportation education and marketing campaign. This is something that this very project could potentially continue on as, because we've heard from a lot of folks that even the choices that are available today are not familiar to a lot of people. And whether it's programs or discounts offered through regional agencies like commute.org or local community-based organizations, there's a lot of room to improve awareness and just connect people with the services that exist. So what could we do to make sure that the promotion and marketing for these services is reaching everyone? Are we overcoming language barriers? Are we thinking about where people learn about these things? Are we thinking about different challenges for trying a new transit service that would be easier or harder for different people who are less familiar with using transit, or maybe don't feel as comfortable traveling alone, not knowing how it works? So broadening our efforts to help people learn about different transportation options. Next, talking about a mobility wallet program. So this is a term that refers to kind of a bundle of discounts or credits or coupons that can be used for a variety of different transportation choices. So in other cities, they might include things like a discounted transit pass, some bike share credits, some car share credits, or things like that. In the coast side, we would want to think about what would that look like? What are the, there aren't the same shared mobility services today available, but maybe there are some services that we could bundle together that would make it a more flexible option. So flexibility to choose how you want to get around each day based on your needs, pulling all those together in a convenient pass that again could have for a pricing structure that reflects the equitable priorities of the project. So maybe for some recipients, it's the whole thing is just a steep discount, and maybe for others, the passes are free, depending on qualifying characteristics. So this is similar to shuttles. This is um, a more expensive option, but ultimately one that could evolve alongside some of the other strategies we've talked about as we find different sources for revenue and as the options themselves expand, thinking about how do we find a convenient way to get those options in people's hands so that they can make the choices that they want to make. Next, talking about expanding the electric bicycle use, including subsidies and vouchers to purchase bicycles and conventional bicycles. So thinking about finding additional revenue to expand those programs and the role that e-biking might play in improving mobility in the Midcoast. Launching a district-wide school access program. So we've heard a lot about the challenges getting to and from school for caregivers, and we want to look at other school systems that have found tools, simple tools to help coordinate rides or to make it easier or more convenient to find other people to get to and from school and to share information. I think this strategy has a lot to do with resources, staff resources to connect people with, again, different options that are available, potentially adding things like a bike lending library for people who could use a bike to get to and from school, and again, ride matching and carpooling. Next, launching a community carpooling program, so not just for sort of school pool focused, but a community-wide program. This can be a great option that works well in places like the Midcoast where there isn't a kind of core frequent transit network system, and it's trips that people make maybe farther from those kind of downtown busiest areas. So how can we find people who are going the same direction and also building connections with each other through a community carpooling program? There are, again, some programs available already in the Bay Area through, for example, 511, but we have heard a lot in our work thus far that some of these programs would benefit from being just a bit more customized to the local community. So whether it's either rebranding it or fine tuning how it's promoted or distributed to make it easier and more accessible for people in the Midcoast to participate. Lastly, I'm not going to go through all of these individual strategies in this category because they're a bit more behind or back of house, I think I mentioned, but talking about, again, all these different rules and regulations to get the program supported and working from the city and county perspective. So getting the local and regional ordinances to be tuned to the issues we've heard about and to the priorities we've learned about. Looking at staff capacity, a lot of these ideas just take time and effort to pursue and put into place. So where is there staff capacity available and what would be needed to accomplish what the community wants to see and where could that come from. And some things as simple as adopting formal goals and setting priorities and measuring success. So it's great to hear about all the things we want to do, but how can we see the progress we're making, and how can we make decisions as a community that move us towards the goals that we set? So opportunities to just get that plan right, get the rules right, sort of get um, the game pieces on the chessboard set up in a way that really reflect where the community wants to go. So that was a lot of information. We're looking forward to hearing a bit more from you all tonight about these ideas. Again, we're going to go through them more together and walk through and have a conversation. But I'll explain that in just a moment. First, I'll just give a little overview for where we're going next with the project and where we are. So we're wrapping up our a round of engagement that has given us a lot of feedback and input about these initial strategies, and we will be adding all of that into all that we've learned into the strategies themselves, and evolving them and iterating them based on these ideas. And then when we move into phase 3, we'll be coming back to you with an updated list and more information about how those ideas could be put into practice. So kind of just at the end of our middle phase of the project, and you'll have more opportunities to weigh in as we move along in the summer and fall. Tonight, we're going to, again, hold a group discussion. We have some interactive, guided boards set up where we're going to walk through again each strategy and ask you some specific questions about what you like, what you don't like, what maybe you need to learn more about to understand, and we'll keep track of the conversation together. We'll take notes. You all will just focus on giving us your ideas, and then we'll walk through all I think it's 18 strategies, I think, and then wrap things up. So before we break out and start the conversation, I'll just ask if there's any questions or comments, and any clarification on what I've gone through so far. Again, knowing that we're about to really dig in together, and we can really get into the weeds on any of these strategies or ideas in just a minute.